It helps to watch the countdown.
Are you going up or going down?
You got to watch the countdown. Well, I ran out of fingers on my hand to count with, so.
Breaking news. We are here live Friday night. 10:20. Nah, 12:20. I was thinking of October for some reason.
I was about to say, it's 10:20 p.m.? What the fuck happened? Where'd the time go?
Anyways, it is December 20th, folks, here on the MCU'S Bleeding Edge. We are live Friday night to talk about a 1996 film called Broken Arrow. We, of course, have my wonderful co-host, Mr. Jeff S. TrueKnowledge, in the house. Everyone, welcome him to the stream. Thank you very much. Yes.
I feel very welcomed. This is a good environment. Even though we're missing out, he's a pop culture guy. He's not here. He's sick. His tummy hurts. We got Allan back in the house, so I'm enjoying the atmosphere so far.
And of course, we have Allan from the Black Collective Podcast here with us. It's been a minute, sir. How are we doing?
Doing good. It has been a minute. See.
Great to have you back. It's been a while.
Did you guys push Trump over the line in South Carolina or what?
Oh, he was going to win here anyway. It didn't.
Oh, I didn't know if maybe you and Matt and Freddie kind of, help push him through, but
nah, heck no, he was going to win. It didn't matter. I mean, it was a landslide here.
I know. I saw the stats in South Carolina. He didn't exactly have any problems.
Nah. Here.
Very true, folks.
It's amazing. Not to be political, but it's amazing how North Carolina and South Carolina can be so fucking different in that aspect.
Oh yeah,
very true.
Very different.
All right, so we are here to talk about the 1996 film Broken Arrow, and Broken Arrow is a John Woo directed film. Who you might recognize as director of such films as Face Off, Mission Impossible 2. He just recently did a film for Peacock that came out this year. He's done a whole bunch of films over the years. He's really popular, action director. And, he's done a lot of great films, I feel. I enjoy his films. I think that, a lot of people... each of them are going to have a different opinion of what they enjoy and like. And, that's just how it works because that's what makes us individuals. So, if you're a John Woo fan or if you're not a John Woo fan, you can definitely check out this podcast and see what we think about Broken Arrow. But like I said, Broken Arrow is a 1996 American action thriller film. It was written by Graham Yost. Now, Graham Yost, for those that don't know, he's a Canadian film and television screenwriter. He's known for writing the film Speed, Broken Arrow, Hard Rain. He also was a writer on the TV series Justified, and he's currently a writer for the series Silo that is on Apple TV, if you did not know that. But he's been around a really long time, Graham Yost. He was a really popular writer for movies in the 90s. And so he definitely brought his flair to this film. Of course, this film stars the John Travolta, Mr. Christian Slater, Samantha Mathis, who I feel this was kind of her culmination year. She really was big, I feel, in the 90s to late 90s, early 2000s. She kind of died off after that, and I really have only seen her in bits and piece parts and stuff like that in movies. She isn't as big anymore. Kind of same thing with Chris Slater, where he kind of died off for a while, then kind of had a comeback. And this was actually the time when John Travolta, he was just coming back from being kind of like in a lull, if you think about it, because 2 years prior in Pulp Fiction is what he got his start back, really bringing him back to the forefront for people, and really kind of made him a household name again. So my first question for you guys going around the panel here, as Jeff, you mentioned you think John Travolta plays bad guys. I just want to get your thoughts on kind of, this era of John Travolta. What did you think when you were going into this movie, not remembering it, or prior to seeing this film, what was your thoughts on John Travolta up to this point of watching this film? I'm just kind of curious what you guys thought about Travolta at this time, and I'll start with you, Allan.
Well, I mean, Travolta at the time, it was like, well, it's Travolta. Let's watch it because I mean, I'm a child of the '70s, so I grew up with John Travolta. You know, Saturday Night Fever, and well, and he up all crappy, but still, it was cool. It was cool. I mean, I watched it because of him. I mean, that was the reason I went to the movie theater and watched it. I watched it because of him. Action.
Uh-oh. You're cutting out, sir.
Why am I?
Yeah, you were there. I don't know
why. I mean, you never really know that you're cutting out when it happens. So, no, yeah, you were.
Okay. Well, basically, I mean, the reason I went to watch the movie was because of him. You know, he was the attraction. You know, Christian Slater was so, but he wasn't as big as attraction as
So you were man crushing on Big John.
No, I wasn't man crushing as much as it was like this movie's going to be good because it's got Travolta in it, you know, type of deal. Which, I mean, we'll talk about that later. But you know, he was the attraction. You know, he was the attraction for shit. Yeah, so I guess if you're going to say I did have a little man crush, yeah, I'll say I did. You know, I watched it because.
Excellent, thank you, Allan. Now, in '94, I know you weren't quite 12 yet when this film came out, Mr. Jeff. So, did you have at that time in 1996? Well, we're gonna be 14. Sorry, 13. Were you aware?
Wait, hold on.
Travolta?
In '96, you're right. I was 13. Good call. Okay. Well, was I aware of Travolta?
Yeah.
I knew his name. I had never watched any of his classic. My parents on their VHS cassettes did not have any. They didn't have Saturday Night Fever, any of that. I saw him in Grease. When VH1 used to like to play Grease a couple times every year, right? And for whatever reason, as a kid, I liked Grease. Like, I really liked it. I thought it was really cool, right? So, by 1996, I would not have watched Grease yet, so I would have known John Travolta's name, but not known a single fucking thing about him.
Okay.
Other than the fact that, of course, he did work with me on my Skinemax, softcore version of Broken Arrow.
Okay. There you go, folks. Yeah. Check out Jeff's Skinemax film as he talks about there, called Broken Anal Virginity. But anyways, so back to the film Broken Arrow.
Oh, well, no, I just want to be clear. No, Cyber, I had no clue about John Travolta. My first actual take on John Travolta was Face Off. So obviously, I'm sure you can imagine the impression that he made. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't Face Off. It was me really young, Pulp Fiction. I had seen Pulp Fiction. I think probably around the time I was 13, 14. I saw Pulp Fiction on HBO. He was fucking awesome. Even as a little kid, watching him in Pulp Fiction, you knew he was great. You knew it. And in the news, because back then we used to watch the news, right? All of us, you know what I'm saying? Or we paid attention, to like entertainment news and the news and stuff. Everyone was talking about his comeback back then, Like even as a kid, I remember hearing about how he was having this big comeback in his career, right? Then Face Off was literally like in rotation heavily at my best friend Little Jake's house, where his parents were like the parents where they let him have like house parties there, like 24/7 or whatever, and like do drugs openly and shit like that. So like I hung out there a lot, right? and we get fucked up. And like we would watch, because this is back in the 90s, no internet and all that shit. We would watch Face Off like every other day, you know? Like get stoned and watch Face Off every other day. So like, you know, I thought Travolta was the fucking man at that point. Then I saw Broken Arrow, which is, we'll talk about that later on.
Okay. All right. So, a few other greats that are in this film, of course, are Delroy Lindo, Frank Wally, Bob Gunton, and Howie Long. Howie Long cracked me up in this film. You know, him being a football player and becoming an actor at this time really cracked me up because he really he was getting into acting at this point when he made Broken Arrow, and he wasn't the greatest actor, but he just cracked me up at his performance in this film. But I think that this movie had a really great cast.
You could see his evolution, Cyber. You could. From, you know what I'm saying? I noticed from Broken Arrow, knowing that was one of his earliest ones, he did evolve and get better.
Yeah, he's okay. Anyways, all right, so getting into the film. So basically, we start out with Major Vic Deakins and Captain Riley Hale. Pilots for the White Man Air Force Base are flying a stealth bomber with 2 B-83 nuclear bombs on a secret exercise. After evading Air Force radar, Deakins suddenly attacks Hale and ejects him from the plane. Deakins releases the bomb without activating them and then reports that Hale has gone rogue. He ejects, leaving the plane to crash in a national park in Utah. A USAF team led by Chief Master Sergeant Rhodes is set to find the missing warheads, and a Broken Arrow situation is declared. The team locates the warheads in a canyon, but is ambushed by mercenaries. Rhodes tries to disable the warhead, but is killed by the other search team survivor, Master Sergeant Kelly, who is a mole for Deacon. Deakins arrives with Pritchett, the mercenaries' financier. They plan to blackmail the United States government with the threat of detonating the warhead in a populated area. So we'll stop there. So I remember during the late 90s, a Broken Arrow or like a hostage situation where warheads or nukes are used to basically ransom the United States was very popular. I remember seeing that in a lot of movies at that time. And I remember just seeing it across the news and stuff like that, you know, always a threat of, nuclear war and, like threats of like, things like this could happen. And I remember just being in awe about that in this film. Because funny thing is, the first time I watched this was on VHS when I was doing a garage sale for a friend of my mom's. And we were over their place doing the garage sale, and one of their next door neighbors had a huge VHS collection. And I kind of became friends with them kind of during that day. And we ended up somehow in their house looking at their VHS tapes because, as we all know, I'm a movie freak. So we ended up going there, and I start looking through the movies, and I come across Broken Arrow, and I'm like, ooh, Travolta, Christian Slater, love both of them. And, go through other ones and see other stuff. Face Off was in there and stuff like that. And I just remember going, ooh, I would love to watch this. And guess what? The person put on the VHS for me to watch while I was there. So I got to watch Broken Arrow for the first time right there. And I absolutely thought it was fantastic.
I thought you were going to say the guy was like, are you fucking sure you want to watch this movie, bro?
Well, don't forget, too, at the time in the late 90s, sir, you wouldn't be laughing this hard about it because you would have a different perspective on the film. But anyways, because for some reason, you can't pick anything and you not somehow destroy it. But anyways, so my question for you is, what did you guys think about this portion what were your thoughts around this time when this movie came out on the whole kind of nuclear war thing going on? And do you remember seeing any of those kind of headlines in the news or anything like that? And just kind of your overall thoughts on that beginning sequence that, you know, of course, is it the greatest intro? But at the same time, I still think it's very action-packed and decently done. Starting with you, Mr. Jeff.
Well, Cyber, that was a good story. That's a very wholesome, good story that you went and hung out, like, you know, had the garage sale and all that, and then went and sat with the motherfuckers and watched Broken Arrow and shit. It was dope as fuck. That's awesome. Very nice. That's very good. So that's cool. That's a very wonderful, heartwarming story. You know what I'm saying? I was just kidding, you know, making a joke about the whole thing. But, like, that is very nice. And, like, you know, it's cool that you saw the movie and you really enjoyed it a lot. Now, I can tell you this right now. I'm not going to sit here and lie. If I had watched... I never watched this. I had a very simple system with films, the same one that I basically had my whole life. Even when I was a teenager, if I did not like the look of it or the feel of it or a trailer or you know, the premise of it or whatever, if I did not like it, I did not touch it. I did not go near it. So, I'd seen the advertisements on like HBO and shit for Broken Arrow and all that, and it did not look like anything I wanted to watch. Plus again, I was a kid. So, like, you know, I had to divide my time between partying, trying to get laid constantly, you know, taking drugs, sometimes at like copious amounts of drugs, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, when you take like 10 hits of acid, that's like a big investment of time, you know what I'm saying? You know, like, so I was busy at times. I didn't always have time to watch movies. But, this is my first time watching it, which I think is always cool in some way when we do a movie review, that it's your first time watching the film. You know, whether it's something that came out in 96 or whatever, you know, when I was 13, and now here I am at 42 watching it in 2024, or, you know, if it's a young person, maybe, right? Watching it for the first time. You know what I mean? You know, that's never heard of it or something like that. You know what I'm saying? I think that'd be cool. But so this is my first watch, and I was never a massive Christian Slater fan. I thought he was okay in Heathers, but besides that, Pump Up the Volume. I thought he was like literally. My dad is obsessed with that movie. He always was, and he always played it. And I always thought he was really, really good in that. But this was an action film. Totally different than the other stuff I'd seen him in. Again, I knew nothing about Travolta, right? So there was nothing else there to really grab, you know, anything for me. As far as the movie itself goes, how it starts, it's very cliched. Like you said, correlating with the tropes of, you know, that time period with, you know, you had your movies like The Rock, with the nerve gas and all that kind of shit, the chemical weapons being the fault, you know what I mean? There were a lot of films that came out in the 80s and especially in the 90s and in the early 2000s that were based off this same premise of some kind, right? Nukes, bombs, you know, some kind of natural disaster. You got to avert it. You know what I mean? There's deception sometimes, you know, blah, 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 whatever. You know, there's a good guy and a bad guy and all that. So, I don't know. I mean, honestly, the movie starts off really bad because that opening boxing match is terrible. Like, I don't know who trained those motherfuckers for that scene, but it is terrible. They don't look natural boxing at all. Especially Christian Slater. And Travolta can't box at all. He just looks stupid. The punches he's throwing at Slater and shit like that or whatever, they're all over the place. They're sideways and shit. nobody's actually defending themselves with their arms up. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and actually like in an actual proper stance. You know, it's totally fake. You know, it's not a well done boxing match at all, and they're trying to pretend like they're fighting basically, even though they're sparring. So it just did not look real at all to me at first. You know, Christian Slater purposely only punching Travolta in the stomach and shit like that or whatever, and like being able to make no real contact with him, hitting him, but Travolta's just like, you know, talking shit and just beating the shit out of him. It looked stupid. It didn't look real. And then their dynamic, their dialogues together, and their chemistry together as like partners, you know, military partners, flying jets and shit like that. It just didn't work for me at all. They did not connect well. They rubbed off each other if anything. I didn't feel like there was a lot of chemistry and balance between them together. That they came off well off each other when in their dialogue. You know, that it was crisp or like interesting or entertaining or fun. It wasn't funny. You know, Travolta's already trying to overdo it from jump with his whole like, you know, crazy, evil, you know, I don't want your $100 because you didn't fight me for real and all this shit or whatever, you know, crap or whatever, that shtick. And then, I'm sorry, but that fighting scene in the cockpit where Travolta decides to go mutiny, right? And they're fighting for control of the plane and all that shit. It looks bad. I'm sorry, but like, again, I know this is 2024 watching it, not 1996, but it doesn't look good. Like, it looks not realistic. Like how a fight like that would really go on in the cockpit of a plane. And I feel like it's unnatural the way that they engage with each other in the plane, like they're fighting. You know, to me it didn't seem realistic to me of how something like that would actually go down. It took way too long. Something like that would be over quickly. It would not go on like that for forever. You know what I'm saying? You know, the whole trope of the fighting with the gun, the one gun fighting with it. I've seen that in so many fucking movies in the 90s and the 80s, whatnot, you know. I don't know. That's all I really have to say about it. It's just that I understood the premise of the movie very quickly. I've never seen nuclear bombs that look like those bombs before, ever. I've never seen nukes that look like that. So I found that to be kind of strange that those were nukes. I've never seen nukes shaped or presented in that missile form like that small. But that's it.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. On to you, Allan, sir. Same question, sir. Your thoughts on the intro and any thoughts you might have had when you watched it in theaters at that time and kind of the correlation of the times.
Yeah, when I watched it was, 96, and Jeff mentioned that, he was, 1996, and he watched it in 2024. In 1996, that was the pattern of a movie, basically. Guys were getting a jet.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. That was the standard.
That was the standard. I mean, remember, we had Arnold at the time peaking. We had Steven Seagal peaking. All these guys. All these action. Chuck Norris. Well, Chuck Norris really wasn't really that fake when it came to a lot of that stuff, except Invasion USA. But that's a different. But basically they make the bad guy was supposed to be larger than life, super intelligent, and an arrogant asshole. That was the bad guy. And Navy SEALs are not Navy SEALs. The one with Seagal, the bad guy, Tommy Lee Jones. He was a arrogant asshole, but he had an answer for everything, just like Travolta did. And that was the way they did it in the 90s. It was like, as it evolved, as movies evolved, or as we evolved as consumers, we realized, come on, that's kind of like shit. But at the time, I remember and when watching it, I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. And like you said, the bombs, for us, and never seen a bomb like that. It was fucking cool looking at the time. It wasn't what the bomb could do. It was what it looked like. And so, the boxing match. I mean, even when I saw it at the beginning of the boxing match was, you can tell that Travolta was not an action star per se, like an Arnold or that type of physical action. But when it came to the witty, fast talking, blah blah blah, he did good. But going back, I mean, I did the same thing. I watched it again today, and I did the same. I think personally, I was like Christian Slater. I was like, I remember when I watched it, I was like, yeah, Christian Slater. This time when I watched it, I was like, Christian Slater. It wasn't the excitement that I had when at first. But I understand what you're saying, Jeff, on the the way the action was. But at the time, for me, I thought it was good. I thought it was action packed. Because that's what you wanted to do in the 90s. The first 20 minutes had to be action packed because everybody,
Hey.
Indiana Jones fucked that up for everybody.
Allan, listen, it's all contrast, man, when we do these movie reviews, right? None of it's ever personal. You know what I'm saying?
No.
You know what I mean? It's like me and Cyber both talked, I was talking to Cyber before the show. Like I can guarantee you right now, I pick movies sometimes that we review that I'm sure Cyber reviews them and he's like, like, great, I can't wait to fucking talk about this, right? Well, I don't know. Cyber loves movies, so like, maybe he doesn't think that way. But you get what I'm saying. Like, we all like certain movies or whatever, and we all like certain genres and certain, types of films and have our favorite actors and stuff like that. But it really does make a big difference when you have the big time jumps between these films to later on, but you have to take into consideration the what's the word? The moment of time when when you get the film, right?
I agree. I agree. If I was in your situation and I had seen what I had seen, I would have been just exactly as you were. Because I did. When I watched it, I was like, man, this is bullshit. But then I remembered, when I watched this in the movie theater, I was kind of excited about it.
If I had been drunk and stoned back in the day and I watched it or whatever late at night, I probably would have liked it too.
So it was entertaining. Let's put it that way. It was. I thought it was good. I don't know.
But Cyber, you gotta tell me though, was this the film that kind of like dovetailed Christian Slater's career? Did it go down from here?
No, this was actually a point where he was getting rekindled again. Same thing with like Travolta. He actually had taken a nosedive a couple years prior after, like hits like Pump Up the Volume and stuff like that. And the Heathers and stuff like that. He actually took a huge hit in the early 90s. I would say probably around 93, 94 it was. He got in trouble with the law and his career kind of took a nosedive. And then this actually was his first feature film that he put out after that whole massacre that happened. And this kind of reunited people's passion for him. And also at the same time, this led to him getting hard rain.
And that was back when it actually mattered when you fucked up like that or whatever. Now it don't matter.
No, now it don't. Yeah, now it don't.
Now you're more popular if you fuck up. But obviously, a la many actors, a la RDJ, right? He got blacklisted by Hollywood, because of his behavior for years.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 100%. A lot of people that's happened to. So
yeah. Well, he was part of that genre that came out. Those actors that had came out at a certain time, and they couldn't do nothing. Compared to the older actors, this new batch couldn't do nothing. I mean, if they farted, man, they were getting blackballed. You know, it was they couldn't do nothing.
Yeah,
That's
there
like
was that, and there was that place in Hollywood too in the early '90s when when River Phoenix died and shit like that. You know
Yeah,
what I
see,
mean?
that fucked it up for that group right there.
Where,
you know,
where,
when
where
Phoenix died,
yeah, where there really was like a problem in Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? With a lot of the younger actors and shit like that, right, Cyber? With the drugs and all that shit, it was really out of hand.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, there was so many people that have overdosed over the years. I mean, that really put a bad, damper on the Viper Club when Phoenix died there. And I mean, that kind of screwed with Johnny Depp a little bit at that time because he was part owner of the Viper Club at the time. And at the same time, he was a close friend of River Phoenix, and that, in a way, personally, was terrible for him. Even though he was just a partner as well, he still was good friends with him, and that kind of, a lot of the people that were popular at the Viper Club at the time, a lot of them were really personally wounded by his death too, as well. So I mean, that kind of put a damper on their career a little bit too, as well, because they kind of like stepped back and were trying to reevaluate their drug uses as well. Because I remember even Robin Williams saying one time, when Belushi died in '82, he said that his death put a huge kick in his ass about doing drugs, and he stopped doing drugs that year that Belushi died. So I mean, these types of things were very popular during that time frame, the 70s, the 60s, the 80s, the 90s, and that really shook a lot of the actors and actresses in Hollywood at that time. And that was a very part of the culture at the time.
The Drew Barrymore stuff is like nobody anymore remembers that, but like her whole crap was insane. The fact that she was actually addicted to drugs and alcohol when she was like 13, 14.
Yeah. And the country was very judgmental at that time.
No, but her
putting
case
labels. Yeah, but they were putting labels on music. And
most definitely. But
were,
her case was so individualistic because she really, like, at such a young age was going to like the big Hollywood parties and shit like that, right, Cyber? And like, hanging out with like, people like Johnny Depp, and like and whatnot when she was a little kid. And I mean, she was partying like a hardcore adult when she was like 12.
Yeah. She was at Studio 54 at like 5 years old, because her mother took her.
Yeah,
and she had a crazy thing. And I mean, not to get off subject for this film, but a lot of what happened to her ties into a lot what's going on today with a lot of the Hollywood elites and kind of what's going down with Diddy and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, she was a part of, unfortunately, that kind of that crossing point there. Fortunately, she was one of those, bystanders that got screwed over badly. Kind of the same thing with like McCulkin, and, a lot of those kids that grew up in the 90s that were big and famous at that time, so, she isn't the only one. I mean, there's a lot of them that aren't telling their 100% fully their stories. But I've read some crazy stories about other kid celebrities and stuff they've gone through besides Drew Barrymore. So
I just always found it so unique that she actually had to go to rehab and all that kind of stuff when she was like 12 and 13, like she was really bad with drugs, like hardcore, at that young age. You know what I mean? Like that's young, especially for that time period. You know what I'm saying? But and to be that popular too, as she was. Hey, you know what? Say what you want about it. I would have loved to have gone to one of those Hollywood parties, right, Allan, where they had the bowls of cocaine right on the table and shit like that,
I'm not gonna say I wouldn't want to go to them either.
I would have went.
But that was the problem. I mean, going back to the Christian Slater, the problem was when River Phoenix died over that overdose, they assumed that every actor around that age was doing the same thing he was doing. And that's why he got, then he had his little incident, which really wasn't bad, but they threw him in there like, oh yeah, he's just one of them, just like all the other ones.
And then they became a problem to production of films and all that kind of stuff, and they were untouchable.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
No.
Cyber, I apologize, sir, for the off.
Yeah. Mr. Tangent. Tangent is back. Mr. Tangent.
He just wanted to talk about going to Studio 54 and doing some.
Drew
Yeah.
Barrymore.
This is like this.
Hot D.
Yeah, it's like that. It's always like that.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I've never actually experienced that before in real life, sir.
sure you haven't. Sure. Likely story, Sir Jeff. Anyways, back to the film, guys. Sorry for ranting off there. But anyways, some more information about this film. This film was actually composed by Hans Zimmer, which is surprising. I felt for this type of film, especially, we all know Jeff how he feels already. But yeah, Hans Zimmer did the music for this film, and I was like really shocked by that when I first found that out. And I'm like, I know Hans Zimmer was it's still a huge, music guy for movies and stuff like that. But I found that interesting that he did the music for this film, and I think that out of all his films that he's done, this is one of the most unique soundtracks I've heard from one of his films that he's done. And I just had to give that some kudos there because I thought he did a really different job than anything I had heard him do prior to 1996. So I thought that he did a really decent job.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known because it didn't sound like none of his other stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I find it so different.
Mm-hmm.
But the budget for this film was actually $50 million, and I think that's pretty big for 1996. This came from 20th Century Fox at the time, before Disney owned it, and it ended up making $150.2 million in theaters. So I mean, it tripled its money. So I think that's pretty impressive for, as Jeff has seen for the first time, such a crappy movie. So I think that shows a testament of how different the culture has turned since this movie came out, almost 30 years ago now. It's funny to think, that this will be 30 years old in 2 more years. Actually, only 11 days. It'll be, only 29. It'll be 29 years old already. Anyways, so back to the film. Hale is arrested by park ranger Terry Carmichael, but convinces her to help him track down Deakins. Deakins' mercenaries commander a search and rescue helicopter to kill Hale, but Hale and Carmichael manage to bring it down, forcing Deakins' men to continue in Humvees. Hale and Carmichael carjack the Humvee carrying the warheads, escaping to a nearby abandoned copper mine. Hale starts to disable one warhead, but Deakins reveals via radio that he has programmed it so that Hale's attempts to disarm it will instead cause the bomb to activate. Hale and Carmichael take the armed warhead down the shaft where the mine is deep enough to contain the nuclear blast. Deakins' team arrives and secures the second warhead. After a gun battle deep in the mine, Deakins shortens his countdown of the armed warhead while leaving Hale and Carmichael trapped. However, they escape via an underground river just before the bomb detonates. The resulting nuclear electromagnetic pulse downs an approaching Nest helicopter, allowing Deakins to escape. Deakins then kills Pritchett, having grown tired of his complaints when the latter continues ranting nonstop. Carmichael and Hale track the mercenaries to a motorboat used for transporting the warhead down the river. While trying to steal the boat, Carmichael is forced to hide on board while military force rescues Hale. All right, so we'll stop there. So what are you guys' thoughts on this? The introduction to Terry Carmichael, the first nuclear warhead trying to be disarmed, and kind of the battle that ensues in the copper mine, which I always remember thinking, like, what are the odds of there being a copper mine in this desert? Copper mine. Like, seriously, like, and copper being a very dense metal that can absorb radioactive materials. I thought that was a really clever writing scheme, I thought, on the many times I've watched this film. And, I think that was very clever writing. Now, the fight sequence, I thought, myself personally, I thought it was, a okay fight sequence. Was it the greatest? No. Was it one of the best I've seen? Never. But at the same time, I still think that it had some great moments to it. and I thought that it was very entertaining in itself. And the whole thought process here I thought was really interesting. Bob Guten's character getting killed because Travolta gets sick and tired of hearing him talking. I think that's absolutely hilarious. That's a very comical moment, I thought. And I definitely think that like the thought process here of like, basically, Hale trying to disarm it and it activates it by accident is an interesting thing. But to go back to, Jeff saying about the look of the bombs, I think that just like what Mr. Allan said about the look, making it look cool, was one of the key reasons they made the nukes look different. But at the same time, the size mattered too, I think, with having to transport them in the film. Because if you think about real nuclear warheads are gotta be, I believe, I think they've said they're estimated usually around 20 feet long. So trying to move that around in that copper mine or in like any of the situations would have just been way too big of a thing to move. So making them smaller and then making them look the way they did, I think was just a way that the production team thought, hey, I know these aren't accurate looking warheads, but it made it easier to move them in the film. So I also think that's another reason why they look the way they do. So going to you guys, what were your thoughts on this section of the film? And this time we'll start with you, Allan.
I thought, actually, I didn't like this section much. I thought she was the weakest link. I thought, with her,
Amen, brother.
arresting him, and then the dialogue, and it was like, I thought it was the everything, because even him anticipating him to find the bomb, it was like Travolta's supposed to be so smart that he knew that they were going to find the bomb, and he had set it up that it would just activate. It was like, the fight scene was okay, because, fighting is cool. But overall, I thought this segment that you talked about, overall, I thought that was the weakest. So it was the weakest part when it came to the, I just thought she was the weakest link and kind of bogged down. And then, Travolta killing the dude. Yeah, that was cool. It gave a little comic relief, and it changed a little bit. But, then them blowing up, and then them getting to the part that they escaped that far down. They set it off, and then suddenly, incidents. There's a river under copper, so that's why I thought it was weak in that sense.
Samantha Mathison's character, Carmichael, I found her very irritating the whole time. She definitely was in the way of the film, but at the same time, the trope at the time was to have kind of this chick on the side that was kind of either your sidekick or your love interest or whatever. And so that was kind of the reason why she got thrown in there, I felt. And at the time too, Samantha Mathis was kind of becoming a big deal at the time. And I think that's another reason why she was cast in the film, because she was kind of getting recognition for other films she had just recently did at the time. And but I definitely agree that she was not necessary. But at the same time, I don't think that she made the film super horrible. But at the same time, I could have done without her in the film. I think that we still could have had Hale be able to do things even without her there. They could even had some other like sidekick guy come on and be a part of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think she was absolutely horrible.
They could have had like a Brokeback Mountain 2 type scenario.
I mean, if they could have had her in there,
Brokeback Mountain, sir.
I mean, they could have had her in there, but her character, they gave her like a position of authority, and that did not work. So in other words, not that, she would have done fine if she was like, hey, she was a hiker. It would have been a lot, okay, the arresting, because it was hard to believe. She arrests him, and
if she had just shown her titties and like accidentally picked up a gun and shot some dudes like accidentally or something to help out.
Yeah, well, that's different. That's high quality filming there. But anytime they show some titties, I'm all for that. But but overall,
Creature Commandos.
It's like it's like Cyber said. So if she hadn't been in the movie, it would have been fine. And but even a sidekick, they could have just brought her in like she was there, or she just happened to be there, and she can help them out here and there. But her character just didn't.
Agreed. Jeff, same question, sir.
Cyber, did you just say that there's titty shots in Creature Commandos?
Correct.
Oh God! Now I have to start watching Creature Commandos.
Four episodes are up of it. And it is a hard R-rated cartoon, sir.
That's what I figured. Especially with gun, but animated titties sounds good. So that chick, I said to Cyber when I was like watching the end of the movie, right, and I was texting him or messaging him on Facebook before the review. I'm like, why is this chick here? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is she doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying to him as I'm watching it. I'm like, why is she in this movie? And Allan, you made a good point. The whole dynamic with her and Christian Slater was completely fucked up, and it did not have any harmony because of the way that they had their characters set up and their roles set up. You know what I'm saying? Like, she was trying to compete with Christian Slater for running the show and shit like that, and trying to be his equal and all that kind of shit, right? And but again, it falls into that 80s, 90s action trope where you've got to have that chick. It's not like now where you got to have the girl power type shit going on, the girl power women and all that kind of stuff, and all that kind of. It ain't like that. In the 80s, 90s, you still had to have that semi-hot chick, right, to be a love interest or whatever or something. You know what I'm saying? To be a part of the film and team up with one of the characters or something like that. That had to occur. You had to have that. I'm actually surprised that they didn't make them hook up in the movie just to make it be more like a 90s movie, but it probably would have been better if they would have hooked up, to tell you the truth. That would have been more 90s. But there's a lot of cliche in this movie, man. A lot of 90s cliche, in this excerpt of the film, there's a lot of explosions that are unnecessary, that are bigger than they don't seem to need to be. Everything is this massive explosion, again, I know it's the 90s. I watched a lot of the 90s movies. I know where special effects were at back then. I know what was popular, with action movies. But I'm just, taking the movie as it is right now in 2024. And in this part of the film is where I really lost track of the story. Really big time. I really had a hard time starting to lose focus on what all the moving pieces were that were coalescing to make up the story of what was happening in the film. I was starting to kind of get confused at that point, if that makes sense, right? In terms of where we're going with certain things here. They threw a lot of variables in there, made it a little bit more complicated than it had to be. When we're talking about Travolta killing the one guy, is that the part where he hits him with that fucking pole or rod across his neck?
Yeah, it kills the guy that was the financier.
That was good. Yeah, I thought that happened later on in the film, but that was really good. I like that. And that was actually one cool thing he did say when he was like, "Oh, I've never actually killed anybody before with my hands." I dug that. That was cool. Some of the action scenes, some of the firefights and stuff like that and all that, they were okay. Nothing outstanding, but they were up to 90s par, and they had some pretty solid guns and weapons in the movie too, that were cool to see, right? Besides that, again, the female character, her addition just made the film drag, and it confused my understanding sort of like what Christian Slater's character's role really was in the film, kind of, in a way. Like where the fuck he was even at. And of course, we also had to have the 90s cliche of Christian Slater and Travolta, enemies, talking to each other over the radio. Had to have that.
All right. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, it's one of those cliches of the 90s, like you just said. It 100% is. And, at that time, if you think about it, they really were trying to push, kind of make it seem like women could be just as strong as men type of deal. And I remember them trying to push that in the 90s, but it didn't go anywhere. Unlike in the last couple of years where it's really gone. And it just does not make the movie entertaining. It does not help the movie at all in that type of situation. At the same time, too, we got to remember this is fantasy. It's not reality. And so doing some of those things sometimes, it's so far out of the box, it doesn't always land as we have come to see. And these things. So I think that it's kind of interesting watching something from the 90s versus something like 2020, 2018, 2019.
That's a really great take, Cyber. It really is. I don't mean to cut you off, but that's a really good point because they were pushing it with G.I. Jane and all that right at that time period. There was that moment.
Very much so. All right. Excellent job, guys. So, I mean, I think, the visual effects, because you had kind of mentioned this, Jeff. The visual effects for 1996, I thought were pretty decent for its time. I mean, watching it now, almost 30 years later, it kind of looks hilarious. It's always funny watching movies from, 30, 40, 50, 60, even 60, 70 years ago. And you see how the graphics have changed over the years. And, some movies, they do very well. They still look pristine this many years later, but other films just look like they were a cartoon made on a piece of paper and left there to use as a special effect sometimes. And I've watched some films from even just 20 years ago, and I've seen films from 40 years ago that had better graphics than those films from 20 years ago. So it's kind of funny to watch. I really feel it depends on the production budget, really, like where they had to put all their money into for these films, because some films, because they have so many huge stars, they have to put all their money towards them as for their budget versus the special effects. And so I feel like films that generally are very computerized, 20, 25 years ago, that look horrible now is because they were paying their actors too much and not focusing on the graphics. Whereas something from 50 years ago that really didn't have the technology like we do now looks better than something from 10, 15 years ago. It's kind of sad because some of these things were worked on so, hard. These people worked their tails off to make you this great entertaining value. And yet it looks like crap 20 years later, so sometimes it kind of sucks. And definitely with Broken Arrow, it being only a $50 million film, I definitely feel that majority of that went to their cast, for this film, because they, like I said, at the time, they had some pretty big names. I mean, between Samantha Mathis, John Travolta, and Christian Slater, I could entirely see that them three being at least $30 million just for them three. And then you had your others that, were probably not as expensive, but the rest of the budget was for the graphics and all that kind of stuff. So, it's too bad because I feel some of the graphics, even almost 30 years later, they definitely look a little hokey at some points. But overall, I think they're not that horrible and not as bad as I've seen some films. But I do think that, at this portion of the film, we have that great explosion that I think looks really good. And looks pretty decent. And I think the action sequence there when the copter gets taken out, I thought was still done pretty well. So I thought it was a pretty decent, section for a almost 30-year-old film. All right. So moving on. So at this point, we find out that Hail to Deuces that Deakins intends to use the train to transport the warhead. Colonel Max Wilkins disobeys orders to help Hale. Stowing away on the train, Carmichael tries to sabotage the warhead, but is caught by Deakins, who arms it. Catching up on a helicopter, Hale saves Carmichael before Deakins can kill her. A gunfight ensues, killing Wilkins and causing the helicopter crash, with most of the mercenaries dying in the aftermath. Deakins has prepared a remote control that can either disarm or detonate the warhead, and prepares to leave on his own getaway helicopter. Hale sabotages the helicopter's fuel pump, causing it to explode and leaving Deakins and Kelly stranded with a ticking bomb. With his plan falling apart, Deacon decides to shorten the countdown timer out of spite. Kelly orders Deacon at gunpoint to disarm the weapon. Hale sneaks up on them during the bickering and kicks Kelly out of the boxcar to his death before engaging in gun battles with Deacon. So we'll stop there before we get to the anticlimax. So what are you guys' kind of thoughts on this section of the film when we, get to the train, basically, and we have kind of, Carmichael getting in the way, and we have Hale trying to save her and all this kind of stuff. So what are you guys' thoughts on that? And this time I'll start with you, Mr. Jeff.
Well, again, I'm at this point in the film, I'm getting confused, because I'm having trouble focusing in certain aspects of the film because of certain, characters like the chick and all that. Things are getting kind of like bogged down with the story, with the warheads at this point. So much stuff is going on, like there's so much movement, you know what I mean? Like we're going in so many different directions now with these nukes, right? That it starts to become kind of complicated. And again, if I remember correctly, where we're at in the film, there are scenes, or there is a scene where, again, you've got that woman and you've got Christian Slater, and they're kind of fighting over who's in control or who's running the show, with this whole situation. And then at some point, she actually becomes like his equal, I think, around this point. She's like become like his equal almost in the quest, right? In like, their goal or whatever. So sorry about that. Somebody was coming to my room. So no, I think that at that point they've kind of went from to where she's almost like a full-fledged partner to Christian Slater's character now. She's like backing him up, whatever. They're like equal. Travolta, what is Travolta's main goal at this point, Cyber? What is he trying to accomplish?
To kill Hale.
That's his main goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Hale's fucked up everything that he's tried to do. So basically, he's basically at ground zero. He can't win anything, so might as well go out in a blaze of glory by killing Hale, just killing Hale for the fun of it.
Because he already had that from jump, like kind of issue, kind of bullshit with Hale to begin with, Okay, so yeah, I guess that that's a good that's a good way to sort of wrap things up and head towards a final for the movie, everybody likes. It's always cool to see a rogue, military agent, in action. I'll give Travolta credit in the film. I don't think he's terrible at all. I just don't think that he's very good at being a bad guy character very well. I don't think he comes off very well when I've seen him in other movies where they've tried to make him to be the main villain, right? Where that's all he is a bad guy. I don't feel like he comes off very well to the audience in that form for whatever reason. I just don't. I feel like it's not authentic for him almost. He can pull off crazy, right? When he's doing his crazy stuff in Broken Arrow, Just like in Face Off, he can do the crazy stuff. He can do the crazy voices, the crazy facial expressions, and all that. You know, he can be scary looking a little bit here and there when he's putting pressure on somebody or whatever. But as that main bad guy, he just does not. It doesn't bring out the best in him as an actor in the character. Whereas if you see his other films, you know, if you see Pulp Fiction, he's not a good guy. He's a lowlife. He's a criminal, right? But he's cool. You could relate to him. He's a normal dude. He does drugs. He likes to party. You know, he has some morals. You know what I'm saying? You know, like you could sympathize with him to some extent, right? You know, same thing with Face Off. He becomes almost an anti-hero by the end in Face Off. When he actually does switch faces and all that and everything, he becomes more gentle and more humanistic, you know, as the villain. So I just have a hard time swallowing him in Broken Arrow as, like, you know, as an effective villain in that role. I do. And I just think that has to do with his personality, his, you know, acting, and how his acting works with his characters and what works and what doesn't, personally. I've seen him as a main villain in several films. I've never thought it worked out very well for him, ever. There was that catfish or whatever, or fishbone, or whatever the fuck it was called.
Swordfish,
whatever. But you know, at the same time, I find myself somewhat having a hard time rooting with Christian Slater as a good guy too, because I don't feel like he's a really great fit for Broken Arrow. I just don't. I just don't feel like he's a good fit for action movies as an actor. I don't think that's his deal. You know, you see him now doing stuff like Archer, and he's okay on it. You know what I'm saying? We saw him on Willow, you know, and he was okay on Willow. I thought he was all right. But doing action, having guns, you know, all that kind of stuff, I never really saw Christian Slater being that kind of actor. So this wasn't a good a good team up for me. You know, for it didn't create a lot of tension between them, right? And then you've got the unnecessary chick there too. Are we at the point where Travolta makes her turn on the bomb?
yes.
Yeah, I didn't see why that was necessary at all. Like, why he couldn't just do that himself, and she had to do it. And then because she lets him do it, or he lets her do it, that's what then thwarts him and like gives her the advantage over him. I don't know. That's all I can say, really. It's just that Broken Arrow is a flawed, but I'm sure back when watched in the 1996 time period, a masterpiece of action domination.
All right, Allan, same question, sir. Your thoughts on this section of the film?
Actually, I thought it was a little bit more solid. They kind of took the loose ends and fixed it up. You know, they had the helicopter blow up with all the mercenaries on it. That eliminated, because there was no way that Christian Slater and what's her name were going to be able to kill all the mercenaries. There was no way that was going to happen. So by them destroying the helicopter and ended up sabotaging it, that was actually pretty cool. It was a cool explosion. And then by him having her set the bomb up, it was just him using his dominance, you know, because they had to, you know, go back. It goes back to the beginning. You know, to remember at the beginning, you know, he didn't want the $100 because he really didn't think he was fighting him, you know, so he had to show his dominance.
Yeah.
In that part, when it came to him, I think from I would say from the part that he, what's his name, Hale gets arrested till here, I would say that John Travolta's carrying the movie. I don't think, I think basically the way they wrote Christian Slater's character is not going tit for tat, but he's more like he's gonna do this, so we're gonna make him do this. And it was more like it seems like John Travolta's character is just destroying himself more than they're actually, and it goes back to, I guess Cyber said it was he was just frustrating him. He had him so frustrated that it came to a point that, and I was glad that they're finally going to the climax on it, because it started to get a little long. That's this time through. I can't remember when I watched it at the original time. I can't remember if I was excited about the part or not. So it was, but I got to go with Jeff on this. It's just, the characters. It didn't. Now, I have to disagree with Jeff saying that John Travolta is not good as a bad guy, as a villain. I kind of liked him as a villain. I liked him in Swordfish. I kind of liked him here. He was good in Punisher. Was Saint, was he? So he had. Okay, he's not the ideal villain, but considering the cast he was around, because all the good actors they got rid of halfway through the movie. They got rid of the what's his name? Well, the ones that we first mentioned, they were all gone, by the beginning of the movie. It was like, so at the end, it was just John Travolta, Christian Slater, and
I really think when Travolta came back and became really popular, I think he really wanted to spread his wings and show. I don't know, Cyber would agree with me. I think he wanted to prove that he could do whatever.
Well, yeah, he wanted to prove he was an actor. That he was just not because remember in the 70s, we knew John Travolta, as my case, I knew him as a dancer. Saturday Night Fever, Grease, that's what he was. He was a singer and a dancer. He was not an action star. He wasn't. So when he came out with this, and Swordfish, and even Punisher, that was after Phenomenon and all them other ones.
I give him credit give him credit for taking the chances. You know what I'm saying, and taking the roles and playing them and all that. You know what I'm saying? Like you're making the effort and all that. Oh
yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you on it, and I just think that at this point in the movie, I think just Travolta was carrying the movie. I think the storyline somewhere between the explosions and the first nuke bomb blowing up, it just somewhere it got disconnected. It was more like, all right, the music score is pretty cool.
Excellent, thank you. I have to applaud you.
Wow. Wow.
I have to Chewbacca you.
Well, I got a Chewbacca here.
I got to work on that. Yeah, that's better. I got to work on our Chewbacca.
That's actually a fart.
Our Chewbacca's pretty weak.
I don't know, it's pretty good, I think. Anyways, excellent job, guys. Thank you very much for that. Good job. All right, so moving to the climactic ending of Broken Arrow.
Ow.
We get to at this point, Terry Carmichael detaches the section of the train with the bomb, but gets into a shootout with the engineer. The engineer is killed and falls on the train brakes, allowing the detached boxcars to catch up. Deacon still has a remote detonator, so he forces Hale to drop his gun and challenges him to a fight. Hale eventually overpowers Deacon despite losing a boxing match at the start, acquires the remote detonator, disarms the warhead, and leaps out of the train. Carmichael also jumps from the train before the detached boxcars catch up and collide. The hurtling warhead flies through Deacon into a stack of oil barrels, causing the train to derail and the barrels to explode, killing him. After the explosion, Hale and Carmichael embrace and formally introduce each other for the first time. All right, so the climactic ending here. Now, for myself, I always crack up at the ending, especially when Travolta gets hit by the bomb and he goes flying into the barrels. Definitely cracks me up every time I watch it because it's so poorly, not poorly done, but so fake and just so comical looking. It's still super entertaining as hell. Absolutely love the ending here. I think it's a great, final, battle for what it is. And as we've already established, Travolta is not a action star. Christian Slater is not an action star. So their fighting at their level, I think, is entertaining enough to get it across in the film that they're fighting. And I think that that's really enjoyable. Very entertaining and very well done. Now, as this climactic ends, and basically we have the ultimate death of Travolta after, Hale jumps out of the train, which that scene always cracks me up too. As he's jumping out, he goes, Chee. I'm like, is he turning off a TV or something? Like, it cracks me up, but I think it still is done really fun. And it's a classic John Woo thing. John Woo always has dubs in his films, so there's always a dub scene in every one of John Woo's films. So this film had kind of that going on towards the end of the film as well. And it just so, I think, was for the time in 1996, I remember being awestruck by it, going, oh my God, this is awesome. And then watching it over the last 30 years almost now, rewatching every time I watch it, I still get a kick out of it. I still think that it's funny and fun and entertaining. And I think that, at this point in the film, it is so, so not realistic. That's what makes it entertaining. And so I think I appreciate that, because I feel if they try to go too realistic sometimes, it does not come across as entertaining. And I think that when you try to go too realistic too, it takes away from it being not reality. And so when they try to do too realistic, unless it's like a biography or a film about real, let's say real boxing or real fighting of some sort, then at that time, I'll be very picky about them doing a fight sequence, and it has to be more accurate looking. Whereas in this, it's a complete fantasy farce that, I'm okay with it being so kind of farcical, and it makes it fun. And so I think that this film definitely has a very farcical ending, but at the same time, I think it's highly entertaining. So, and then, of course, the ending where, basically, Terry Carmichael and Hale introduce themselves to each other is the greatest ultimate climax there could ever be in the film, which absolutely cracks me up every time I watch this movie, too. Like, I'm like, really? You're going to end it like that? And then it goes to Broken Arrow. I was cracking up with that. I'm like, okay, you could have just, after the explosion, you could have just went Broken Arrow. I think that them meeting each other, introducing themselves officially, and just kind of a little stupid a little bit there at this point, because they kind of introduced each other earlier in the film. And at the same time, it's like they didn't get down to, get dirty or anything here and go for it in the desert.
For real. If you're gonna do that, you have to have a fuck scene.
Yeah, so definitely a little comical there, but at the same time, I think it's got a fantastic ending, and I absolutely love it. So going to you guys, what is your final thoughts on the climax of this film? And I'll start with you this time, Allan.
They gave us the ending we wanted, because basically all the stuff that we were saying, that I said before, was just an intro to, at the end, they just were like, all right, we just don't give a fuck. The engineer's gonna get killed somehow. He's gonna slower the train, and then they're gonna jump out of the train, and then these barrels are gonna hit him, and a mannequin of John Travolta's stock footage. That's basically what it was, is stock footage of some guy getting over and hitting and blowing up. They gave us the ending we wanted. You know, it was like, all right, I can handle this ending. You know, it was. I thought it ended on a good note, personally.
And what did you think about it ending before it says Broken Arrow with them introducing themselves to each other? What were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was kind of funny. It was like, hey, like, how's it going? You know, and then Broken Arrow. But it would have been better if they had somebody say Broken Arrow, you know, but they didn't. But I thought it was exactly what we wanted, you know. It was like, I remember getting out of the movie theater and I thought I had the same feeling I did at the end of this one that I had when I went to the movie theater. It was like, you know, that shit wasn't that bad. It was entertaining, you know, because of that last 10 seconds is what matters. You know.
Agreed. Yeah. You know, it's, as we always say, it's about entertainment value. And, you know, I feel that over the years, I remember when I first started out reviewing films, I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, I want to be different than what other critics are like. You know, because I remember, Siskel and Ebert and, Roper and, all these guys, growing up and stuff like that. And, I remember listening to them talk and just kind of like trash everything they watched. I remember just thinking to myself, like, how is this helping the movie out at all? I mean, it's literally telling people this is the trashiest fucking thing that there ever could be. Don't go see it. And I just remember thinking, I'm like, you're supposed to be reviewing the film and talking about, the film. And, I remember them never really talking about, anything the actors have done otherwise or anything like that. And I remember thinking to myself, I want to do something different. And that's why I ended up, doing my stuff the way I do, because I always thought that critics just did not make sense to me. And so, with a movie like this and how farcical it is at the very end of the film, and, throughout the film, there's definitely some farcical things. It just, I always crack up when people nitpick it so dramatically, like this wasn't supposed to be real. It's supposed to be fake. And so, I always enjoy, films that take it way to a different level outside the box and make it, kind of funny or, make it almost, like not a comedy, but definitely make it a very interesting yet not so accurate film. And so I think that the deriving from that for me is more like that's entertainment. So yeah, I think that this film is very entertaining. I really enjoy it. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of it that is really decent and good for its time. Once again, going back to, time periods here, 1996 was one of those years, or the late 90s, let's say 95, 96, 94, 97, 98, 99, those years there were epic for these types of films. We had films, like Face Off come out as well. We had, of course, several Star Trek films that were very much like that, very farcical in a way. We had a lot of, films that were just like really bad, direct to DVD, direct to VHS, like Firestorm and stuff like that. And I absolutely love Firestorm. I don't want to rip it, but that I feel was a lot better acting by Howie Long than he was in Broken Arrow.
Oh yes.
And so, him and William Forsythe being like good guy, bad guy, having to battle each other. I absolutely remember loving the movie. And then I go look at the reviews for it and I crack up. I'm like, what were you expecting? Oscar nomination here?
Yeah,
like, it's not Oscar nomination. It's a freaking direct-to-video film. And so I always crack up with that kind of stuff. So I if you have not seen Broken Arrow, I'm just saying, please go in with an open mind watching this film, because it's definitely not going to be something from the last 10 years.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be something from the late 90s that you were not used to, probably, if you didn't really watch movies back then. And that, it's going to be a little farcical, people, because that's just how they used to make the action films. Anyways, that's my rant. Moving to Mr. Jeff, your final thoughts on the conclusion, sir.
Okay, well, my outlook is that I did not enjoy the ending because I really felt the story just fell off and fell off and fell off more and more as the movie went on. It just lost its path. And where the movie took things to with this one-on-one confrontation, all of a sudden this nuclear crisis, and all of a sudden, you know, your two antagonists are gonna fist fight now, right? Over the bomb or whatever the fuck. Come on, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. After you already had the stupid boxing match at the beginning of the movie, like, you know, again, I know it's the 90s. I know it is. And so, you know, hey, again, look, who's to know, right? Because again, we're all of different ages, right? You know, we all saw these films at different times. You know, we all had different motivations of why we watched movies when we were younger, you know, even when we were kids. In 1996, 1997, 98, 99, I was so focused on partying, doing drugs, smoking weed, fucking my older girlfriend, and then when she went to college, fucking every chick I could find to bang after her. You know what I'm saying? That I only watched movies like at home on HBO, like going to bed at night and stuff like that, you know? Or like when we would go to the movie theaters once in a while, we go to the movies, but I'd be smashed. I'd be like drunk as shit at the movie theater, like passed out, you know? So now that I did not see some solid films as a kid in the theater, I did see some really good movies. Thank God. Did see some solid ones. I had to see Armageddon 3 times because the first 2 times I went to see it, I went drunk and I passed out. So I had to go a 3rd time to watch Armageddon because it was so popular. It was so popular back then. I had to see it. So, anyways,
Jeff just wants you all to know he was a man whore that loved drugs and partying.
Yes,
just so everyone knows.
Where I grew up, it was. I mean, maybe I was a little bit more active than most.
He had a broken arrow.
I was probably a little bit more active than I was more active than most 13, 14, 15-year-olds because I had that older girlfriend that broke me in. So I had just gotten so used to sex in my life that I chased it constantly. So you know, so I wasn't, you know, I was watching movies. Like I said, I was watching Face Off and shit like that, watching movies, you know, at my friends' houses and stuff, getting fucked up, watching movies. But we were partying, man. And this is the 90s, you know. The way we entertained ourselves was getting together in big groups and house parties and bonfires and talking in circles to each other and walking from group to group, talking to your different friends and sharing drugs and, you know, and maybe you got lucky that night. You know what I'm saying? Like, you weren't worried about watching a movie, you know? So, I can honestly say if I had watched Broken Arrow back in 96 when I was 13, I probably would have thought, this is a cool movie. This is cool. You know, I would have dug it. I would have dug the cliched stuff probably and accepted it because it was totally 90s, right? And I dug 90s movies. I do love 90s movies, right? So all I can really say about the ending is that I don't think it was a very intelligent move to pit 2 actors together against each other at the end as the good guy, bad guy, who both weren't very good in those roles to begin with in the film, I didn't think. Especially Christian Slater. You know what I'm saying? You know, honestly. I just did not feel he was a good natural fit. And then all of a sudden Christian Slater could fight at the end. Like, he could fight. He couldn't fight in the boxing match, but he could fight all of a sudden at the end. That was interesting. But
well, you do realize there was a reason for that, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know,
he was holding back at the beginning of the film because he did not want to fight Deacon
because it was this far.
Well, he's not a violent person. Plus,
Yeah.
there was no pussy looking at him when he was fighting the second time. Pussy staring at him, so he's like,
Yeah.
"Gotta look
Yeah,
good.
that's it. Yeah.
Gotta look good now."
Yeah, he had that. He had what's her name? You know, that chick in the movie. You don't even know her name because that's how how unimportant she is. She has no name in the movie. You know what I'm saying?
Harry Carmichael, you mean?
They really could have improved the film with that whole ending thing where they actually finally introduced themselves. If they would have fucked at the end, you know, like seriously, because this is the '90s, so you can't just make out. You gotta fuck. You know,
So the long and short of it, folks, is Jeff likes sex. He's a sex whore. He likes the sex, and he wishes everything had sex in it. Just
Yeah, he
FYI.
likes it.
That's not completely true. I do enjoy some movies that don't have sex in them. Let's be honest. Most of the films that come out these days don't have nude scenes anymore or sex scenes. They don't. Although I've heard that they're coming back in some films. You know, some actresses are doing them again now. Are doing sex scenes again, which is good. Oppenheimer had some good stuff. Oppenheimer had some pretty solid stuff. You know, let's be honest. You can't make all the best, most artistic, historical, serious, dramatic films are going to have adult female scenes of sex and things like that, nudity. It's going to happen. But overall, I'd say that the 13-year-old Jeff would probably have 2 thumbs up, Broken Arrow, you know. But unfortunately, because I watched it in 2024 and I'm now so deeply affected by the overt changes in special effects and the style of movies that come out now, you know, that we've gotten used to. You know, they're so different that now, unfortunately, I have a hard time, you know, following and sticking with a film like Broken Arrow. But I do love some of the actors in the film. Delroy Lindo is always a plus, right? He's always a bonus to any film. You know, they had some really good secondary characters in there.
Delroy.
Yeah, I can't name all of them, but they had some good secondary characters in there. They had the guy from that '70s show was in there.
Kurtwood Smith.
Yep, he was in there. He's always good. So you know, they tried to pull the movie off on the budget they had, and effectively, you know. They slipped up a little bit here and there with the realism, but it's okay. It's not a terrible film. I, like Cyber, would agree that you should definitely watch it, just taking into consideration that, you know, at the end of the movie, you may get picked up by She-Hulk and brought to the bedroom.
Actually, I was going to tell people this was you in 1996 instead of watching the movie. This was what was happening.
Sir, I did not have a Trump hat or a beard in 1996. I swear. I had a mustache I could grow out, but I could not grow a beard in 1996.
Yeah, but you wanted to be like Trump. Everybody in '96 wanted to be like Trump.
I had a mustache, you know, because my dad had a mustache, so I thought mustaches were okay. So I rocked a mustache, you know, until I could grow my first goatee. Then I shaved that bitch off, and I've gotten rid of it ever since.
Now he has the beard strap.
Now I get the beard strap. It finally came in. Strap. It came in college. Thank God it came in. You know, I actually I could grow sideburns in high school too. I used to do sideburns. Remember those?
Yep. Yes. Yeah. And this is, you know, of course, you know, with him growing the sideburns, I think he was ashamed one day and he decided to do this, you know, because I just don't know, you know, what happened here. I just don't know.
Well,
he apparently just went totally Jawa here, you know, or Tuscan Raider or something. I have no idea.
What I'm very proud of is the fact that I was actually able to pull off back in the day as a teenager those DMX African American lines that the rappers would do, where you'd have just the lines up and that would come across.
Yeah.
I could pull that off and do it, and it looked tight. I'm telling you right now, I can pull that off. It's tough to shave that shit. It's tough to do it, but I pulled it off. The DMS lines. I would never do them again now. I'll give you my rating right now, sir, for Broken Arrow. I will give it a 4.5.
All right. Allan, what would you give Broken Arrow, sir?
I'll give it a solid 5 out of 10.
Okay. I'll give it a 10. Love it. Enjoyed it. Think it's fantastic. Think it's a really fun movie. And it entertains me. So it gets a 10. Giant 10, folks. Giant 10.
Cyber, you're a lot. You love giving 10s.
I will always give 10s if it entertains me. If it doesn't entertain me, it'll get lower.
You get a
if it entertains me,
7.9 if it
10.
doesn't entertain.
By the way,
no, I don't do the points. I think the points is the most fucking stupidest thing ever. I give it solid numbers. Either if it's bad,
I give it a
I'll give it a 1, 2,
5.72,
3, 4, or 5.
sometimes I feel like I've got to like do a 7.5 or a 6.2. Sometimes I've got
Yeah,
to go
I
there.
know, sir. I know. Just like this, you know what we have to deal with this.
Well, we need some new images. I've got to do some homework. I've got to get us some new memes and some new video clips, so we have some new stuff to play with. Because some of our stuff's getting kind of old. I enjoy it, of course, but for our audience and for our guests, we need some new stuff. So I've got to do some work. But anyways, guys, I really enjoyed doing this review, even though I didn't like the movie very much. It was a lot of fun doing the review with you guys. You ready to do some plugs? You ready to, Allan, you ready to be the spokesperson for the Black Movie
Apparently,
Collective?
Jeff is taking over here, folks. So thanks for watching the Broken Arrow review. And well, go ahead and take it over, Jeff.
Cyber, we're co-hosts. I was going to let you slide right in and finish your whole deal right after.
Sure. And so that's why you get this award tonight. Danny Award.
It's not my first Danny Award, sir, and it won't be my last.
I know it will be.
Either way, I was bringing the positive attitude tonight. It was good to see Allan. Allan, the spokesman. Oh, I know it was. You better come back, man. I know you enjoy being here. So, Allan, give us your pitch. What is going on these days with your crew, Freddie and Matt and yourself?
Actually, we are an award-winning podcast. Won an award. We rigged it, but we won it.
Oh, you rigged it.
Yeah, of course we rigged it. We only got like 2 listeners. Yeah, we won
isn't it?
Yeah, we won best podcast Post Courier, like they have the local newspapers. So we won the best podcast. We beat the pressure washing. So
you beat the pressure washing podcast?
Yeah, we beat the pressure washing podcast and self-help one.
What the fuck am I looking at here, bro? Potbelly pig season?
Yeah, Potbelly pig season. That's Freddie went to Freddie went to like a event somewhere, and they had a pig calling or Potbelly calling, and he was part of it. Fred, he just does this thing. And then black okra was Parker went to the store and bought some black okra, and it's a lot longer and whiter than white okra. So that was. And then Timu T-Pain was
This is some interesting shit, Cyber. These guys got some interesting shit going on.
Yeah, Timu T-Pain was Freddie bought some mic equipment from Timu, and it was shit. You know?
So that was the Temu equipment episode.
Yeah, he was Timu T-Pain because he sounded like shit the whole episode. It was horrible. It was. I went to edit it and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't edit this." Horrible. So I left it the way it was.
I love it. I love it. Helene and the Gaze of Raccoons.
Yes, can't remember that one. I think it was we came up with some words and it was like raccoon. Something meant raccoon. I can't remember what it was. I'm usually drunk.
Well, folks,
yeah. It's not surprising, but yeah.
Allan is the producer of the Black Lincoln Collective Comedy Podcast. I've been on there before a long time ago. They probably don't want me back because I was like,
no, that's not the case. Of course not.
I think if I remember correctly, the last time I came on, like I literally had just got done smashing some slut, like right at the same time, and like I came up naked, like to tell the guys, like just give me a minute. I had like no clothes on. Yes. It was great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was the one where the chick actually came on. Remember?
Yeah, she came on the show. Yeah. And
I asked her. I was like, "Did I just turn you out?" And what'd she say?
Did. Freddie wanted to see some boobies, but she wouldn't show them.
No. That was a wonderful Broken Arrow podcast moment right there.
Yeah, that was yeah, so we come out every week on Mondays. But we usually do our live show. We do our shows on Wednesday. You do a show on Wednesday. I can't.
We used to. We're probably going to do it again, but we're not right now. We decided to take a break on it for right now.
Nice.
Since it was initially our original show night, I have a feeling it will come back.
That's cool.
Anyways, Allan, we love you very much. We love the Black Lincoln Collective Comedy Podcast. I've enjoyed doing reaction videos with you guys before. I love Freddie. I love Matt. I haven't talked to those guys in a long time. Tell Matt I said what's up. Tell Freddie I said what's up.
I sure will.
Tell Matt to give me a shout. The last several times I've tested him, he hasn't responded to me. I know he gets busy, but
he don't answer me either. So
no, I know how it is. Cyber, sir, great job tonight, sir. As always, you're a wonderful moderator. As always, you do a wonderful job on the Bleeding Edge. I enjoy the hell out of being your best buddy, and loving the hell out of you and making content with you. Let me pull up your channel so you can plug away, sir.
All right, folks. So if you enjoy me as a moderator or as a guest on the Bleeding Edge, you can check out my solo content. You'll find me under Cyberneticshark on YouTube, TikTok, X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Patreon, pretty much any social media platform you can find me on. As you can see there, still Wicked is my most recent review along with Red 1. I have not had a chance to go see anything new recently except for Craven. I still haven't done my Craven review yet. I will have it done eventually here. Fortunately, some cold setbacks happened and all kinds of fun stuff like that happens. The great months of December, that great winter season. So as you can see there, Ray Craven's still my most recent little mini short. So you'll be seeing more stuff from me soon. Just, had a cold, had to get over it, and I'll be back with more stuff for you guys soon. So keep on watching, keep on trucking, keep on watching us here on the MCU's Bleeding Edge. If you haven't subscribed to either channel, please subscribe. And of course, as always, Mr. Time Cop himself was not here tonight, and too bad. And if you haven't checked out his channel as well, check out the great channel of Mr. Pop Culture Guy himself, Andres. So definitely check that out too as well, folks.
I will see him on Sunday night for Serial Mom. I can't wait. I've never watched it before in my life. I'm sure it'll be very interesting. We'll see.
Gay sex jokes.
Hopefully it'll be okay.
You ever seen anything John Waters has made?
Yeah, I have.
If you've seen anything he's made, then Serial Mom's up that alley.
It's got to be better than Half Baked. Half Baked as a rewatch was not good. I did not enjoy it.
Really?
Not funny. Yeah, not funny at all. As a 40-year-old, just not funny at all. Just kind of silly. You know, I thought it was kind of silly when it came out back in the day. Because like they didn't represent. I'm a stoner. How they represented weed in the movie was nothing like how I smoked weed or anything like that. You know.
Yep.
So,
Abracadabra?
No. I mean, who the fuck? Who goes on a date with a chick with $7?
That's the whole comedy about it, sir.
Allegedly, I did, but I ain't talking about it. Let's finish the show.
I mean, I'm sure it's been done. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, folks, for Cyberneticshark, for Allan, for myself, Jeff S. True Knowledge, we are out of here. Another movie review in the tank. Broken Arrow. Next Friday, we have Blade, the original Blade with Wesley Snipes. The Friday after that, we got The Green Mile. We've got Doom Prophecy, the finale on Monday. Looking forward to it. It's going to be great. I'm sure Cyber's pumped for that too. And it was great to see everybody. God bless everybody. It is Friday, so enjoy the rest of your weekend. Merry Christmas. We got the holidays coming up. So that's obviously, only a couple days away. And it was good to see everybody. It was a good show. I had a great time. And we'll see everybody later.
Hey.
Peace.